Hi everyone, and welcome to day 2 of our free Tuning Into Guidance workshop. And once again, I am just as excited as I was yesterday to share this information with you. So remember, yesterday was day 1. Day 1, we talked about what is guidance. Where does guidance come from? And we talked about guidance comes not from out here, but the best guidance always comes from within here. A good way that we talked about that you can start getting out of here and back into here is simply by putting your hands over your heart or over your heart chakra and taking that big deep breath, taking 3 of them, and just asking, what does my heart say? And doing that exercise. Then we went in to talk about how the importance of discerning where you're getting the guidance from. Are you getting it from your ego or are you getting it from spirit? Remember, ego's guidance is a very, it's hasty, it's angry, it yells. And spirit's guidance is calm, is loving, is peaceful. And we know that we're following guidance because we feel peaceful and compelled. And then the last point that we covered was... that it's not important necessarily to know the name of your guides. As long as the guidance that you are getting is loving, kind, and empowering, then that's all that really matters. So today, day 2, we are going to be talking about agendas. And our agenda when it comes, our agenda when it comes to guidance. Now you are going to see me looking off the screen here because I'm just sharing this out to my groups. And if you feel like someone would benefit from this, or if you feel like you would like to share it out to a group, you are more than welcome to. Like I said, I'm just sharing it out now. And today's topic is all about agenda and releasing those agendas, because that's what we have to do. We have to begin to release those agendas. And for those of you that are sharing, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. So I'm just sharing it to my pages, sharing it to my ACIM support group. I'm sharing it to my Friends Who Like Simply Intuitive group. I'm sharing it to Love and Light. And those are the groups that, and of course to my own timeline. So that's what I'm sharing it to. Well, good morning to you and thank you for joining. Hi, everyone. And thank you for joining. I'm so glad that you are here as well. Thank you so much. So here we go. We're going to share it to my timeline. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate it very much. All right, so we're going to go here and we're going to go here. All right. Hello. Thanks for joining. So this topic, you may think, well, I don't need to know about an agenda to get guidance. Oh, but you do. See, because all too often when we're asking for guidance, we're not, and this is something we're going to talk about tonight, is when you're asking for guidance, are you really asking for guidance or are you asking to let your plan be done? I want everyone to think about that for a moment. As I continue to share and as you continue to share, think about that for a moment. When you're asking for guidance, are you really asking for help or are you asking that your plan be done? Just think about that just for a moment. So here we go. Let's go. And sometimes it is for clarification. Sometimes we do need that clarity. Let's see. Oh, no, I already shared it there. Wrong one. All right, so I'm sharing it there. Beautiful. So, when we are asking for that guidance, we always have our plan. We do. We always have our plan and our agenda. That's something else that we definitely, sometimes that's what people do. Confirmation that we are thinking on the right path. Very much so. That can be something that we tune in for. But even though and that's where we have to be really discerning, not careful, because I don't want anyone to go into fear, but we do have to be discerning about that. Are you when we're tuning into that guidance, why are we tuning in for? Not only for the confirmation and for all that, But the other reason that we're doing this, well, thank you so much for sharing it to your group. I love it. Yes, and results. The reason that we share, the reason that, we tune into that guidance is because part of us, now this is, for those who may not know, but a good majority of the time when we are asking for that guidance, what we're really asking for is, yes, that confirmation, my plan's okay. And that's what we have to release. And I'm going to talk about that here in just a moment. I have to share to one more page, asking for things to work out the way I think is best. Ooh, Sandy, yes, we talked about that on your session, I remember. We don't have to do that. That's what really we're doing a good majority of the time. Well, thank you, Miss Shirley. Thank you. A good majority of the time when we tune in for that guidance, we're really saying, okay, is what I want, this is what I want and this is how I want it. And that's where we have to be very discerning, because if we're tuning in to say, well, this is what I want and this is how I want it, once again, you're not giving the universe anything to work with. You're saying it has to be this way and it has to go this way. And if it's not this way, then I don't want it. And you're throwing it away. We don't need to do that. All we have to do is when we seek for guidance, we don't seek it with an agenda. We don't seek it saying, well, it has to be, this way. That's why when you hear me do prayers for people, I am always leaving it very open-ended. I'm not saying it has to be this way or it has to be that way. I'm simply saying, okay, what is your will in this situation? Thy will be done. What would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say? And to whom? Nowhere in there does it say, dear God, so I have this plan about this, and this is how I want it, and this is how it needs to be, and this is how it needs to be presented to me. And if it's not presented in this way, then I'm sorry, I cannot accept that. No. Notice how open-ended that guidance is. Okay, Holy Spirit, what do you want me to do? And once again, I use the word Holy Spirit. You can use God, you can use Jesus, you can use Palladians, you can use Yeshua, you can use whatever it is that helps you. It helps to silence the ego by simply asking ego to be silent. It can for some people, but other people who are just tuning in and just really getting used to guidance, it's hard for them to silence the ego. And I know when I first started, that was one of the hardest things to do, was to tell that thing up there that's constantly talking, constantly jibber-jabbering, constantly in your ear, to shut up and be silent. Because it doesn't want to be. It wants your attention. And that's why we have to be so vigilant. And yes, practice is key. Practicing, asking without agenda. Practicing, thine will be done. The bigger will, the divine will, to be done through you. And that's the other key point about, the agenda. We have to realize that we're not really doing anything. The miracle, the presence, whatever you want to call it, is coming through us. Okay, nothing's being done by us. It's just being done through us. So that's another part of this that you have to realize when you're giving guidance, no matter if it's to yourself or to someone else, realize that it has nothing to do with you. The moment that you are involved in giving the guidance is the moment you need to stop. If you have a personal investment in it, you need to stop and you need to take a step back. I was actually asked today a question about that. And I was driving and a woman, said, what do you do? So I told her, what I do. And she was like, oh, so do you take on everyone's problems? And I said, no. And she goes, well, then how do you help people? If you don't take it on? I said, I don't need to take on other people's problems. I said, my job is not to take on their problems. My job is not to heal them. Because if I'm taking that responsibility, then I am putting the weight of the world on my shoulders. And I don't want to do that. That's all in the domain of the divine. That's it. It's all in the domain of the divine. And I give it all to the divine. I say, okay, here you go. What would you have me say that's going to be beneficial? to this person. And that way I can take that step back and say, I don't need this. No thanks. Ron Schaefer needs to get out of the way, because there have been times that I have talked to clients about very sensitive subjects that I have no business talking about, that I don't know anything about. And this actually came up once. I was talking to a friend of mine, and it was just a normal conversation. I had gotten the guidance to call her. And so I called her, and she had answered, and we were talking on my walk, and then I got back home, and as I got back home and through the door, she started crying, and she was telling me about all this crazy stuff that was happening. And, certain subjects that Ron Schaefer, the ego, doesn't know anything about. Not a thing. But yet, and as I was listening, and I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Spirit said, you have a depth. I don't. Give this to me. And I was like, okay, what would you have me say? And let me tell you, that was one of the most eye-opening conversations I had ever had with anybody. Because there were words coming out of my mouth that I just couldn't explain. I didn't know how that I knew the things that I was saying, or how I could be saying them so matter-of-factly. Not really an emotion behind it, just, this is, just here we go. Here are the facts. And I was just floored by that. But once again, it had nothing to do with Ron Schaefer. It had nothing to do with, I need to heal my friend. I need to help my friend. No, I just said, Holy Spirit, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say? And Spirit was able to flow through me without my agenda, because my agenda would have been, I need to make my friend feel better. I need to make sure that she, feels like she's heard, and I need to do this and I need to do that. And Spirit said, no, that is not what needs to happen. Spirit, kind of came through and was very direct, but very loving, very kind, and told her exactly what she needed to hear. And she was, very, very, grateful for that. And I was grateful for it, because it was just a beautiful experience. I was like, wow, this is great. And that is why we must, yes, we do have to get out of our own ways. And that's why we have to constantly, always be in that asking, so that we can receive. And receive without that agenda. How many times have you asked for guidance? Let's say, and this is the one I get all the time, is, well, is this person in love with me? Or is this right for me? And stuff like that. And instead of, once again, instead of you coming to me and asking me these questions, why not tune into your own guidance? It's because you have an agenda. It's because you want a specific answer. And with that specific answer, if you're not necessarily hearing what you want to hear, then that's when anger arises. That's when upset arises, because it's not what you wanted to hear. And that's, once again, we actually fear that. We fear not getting the answer we want, because we are so attached to an outcome. And we have to do our best to detach from those outcomes so that we can actually receive the guidance. Otherwise, how can we be guided? So let's say that you have a certain plan in mind. Let's say you want to start your own spiritual business, okay? And you're like, yes, I'm going to start my own spiritual business. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. So you already have things you're going to do. You already have a grand idea of what it is. And then you're like, okay, God, what would you have me do? Well, God says, you've already decided. You've already said, this is what you're going to do, and this is how you're going to do it. Where is there room for me? There's no room for me. So, and it's always, as a teacher of mine, Miss Robin Duncan says, you're playing, come on, God. You have a plan. You're like, come on, God. Tell me how my plan is so wonderful and great, and tell me how to achieve my plan. That's not what it's about. It's not about, dear God, how can I achieve my plan? It's really, and once again, I just use the word God. You can use, divine love, divine spirit, divine intelligence, higher self, whatever words you want to. This is just what I ascribe to my higher power. And so you can It's not about, how can you, it's not like using God as a cosmic vending machine. God, I want this, B9. Let's go. Where's B9? That's not what it's about. It's about how can I be of service? Because in being of service, you will be guided to the exact right thing at the exact right time, regardless if you know it or not. And I always love this story because, before I even knew anything about psychics or before I really knew anything about intuition, I was in high school. And I remember I got a Coke and I went to go sit down, and there was a girl who I knew, and she seemed very sad, and I just, felt really guided. It was the only dollar I had, the only Coke I was going to have that day. And so I was like, well, she looks really sad. I think she needs this Coke. And I just walked right over to her and I gave her the Coke. And I said, here you go. I said, consider it a gift from me. Have a great day. And I just walked away and I was like, well, I guess I won't be having a Coke today. And what do you know? It was 5 years later, she walked in to my mom's work, and she offered my mom any amount of money because, my mom, she had overheard my mom talking to her boss being like, oh, I'm not sure how we're going to pay this, blah, 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 blah. And then she asked, because I looked just like my mom. She was like, oh my gosh, are you Ronnie Schaefer's mom? And she was like, oh yeah, I am. And she was like, oh my God, I knew him in high school. And one day he gave me a Coke. She goes, and he will never know how much that Coke meant to me because I said that night, if no one pays attention to me at school, I'm ending it. She was going to kill herself. And I didn't know that. I had no idea. I just felt this guidance to be like, here, you need a Coke. So I gave her the Coke. And that helped her to see that people care about her. And then she went into therapy and, she felt strong enough to tell people about it. And, her father is the president was the president of CVS. She goes, any amount of money you need, tell me, and I will go to the Chase Bank across the street and I will get it for you. Whatever you need. She goes, because he saved my life. I didn't know I saved someone's life. I just gave someone a Coke. I didn't know anything about it. But once again, I followed the guidance without an agenda, without being like, ooh, what can I get from her 5 years down the road? Or what can I get from her in a minute or in an hour or in the next class or in the next couple days? No, there was no getting. It was just, okay, this is what I'm told to do, and I did it. There was no agenda behind it. And that's what, like I said, we have to be so vigilant of. Do you have an agenda behind what you are doing or what you are asking for? Because if you do, you need to stop, take a step back, forgive yourself, because I am a firm believer in forgiveness, because that is what the Course in Miracles teaches, and I have seen its beautiful workings throughout my life. And we take that step back and we're like, okay, I forgive myself for having this agenda. What would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say? And to whom? Simple, easy. And that's it. That's how simple it is. But we have to release our attachments, release our agendas. And I know that can seem like an impossible task. How can I begin to release my agenda? I already have this plan. Well, once again, realize one thing that's very important. The moment that you let go of your plan, the moment that you allow yourself to let go of the certain way it has to come in, amazing things will happen. If they're not happening for you right now, it's because you're saying it has to come in a certain way. Let that go. And I'm going to tell you, 100%, because I have no problems with being transparent. I believe that is definitely what we have to be, is transparent. And there was a time when, I didn't think this spiritual business was going to work. I was like, oh my God, it's not working. And I'm going to have to go get a normal job, like 9 to 5. And I failed. Okay. And that was definitely something I went through, and it was not fun. And I remember I got in the car, I went to the dollar store, because that's where I said I was going to work. I'm like, I'm just going to go work at the dollar store. And I went to go get the application, and I brought it home and I slammed it on the counter, and I went to my room and I sobbed. Oh God, did I sob. And I don't mean like, I mean like, ah, that ugly cry, because I had such resistance. And that's the only way that I could really release it. And then what do you know? after I let all that go, after I finally vented it all out, and I just said, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say? And to whom? What do you know? The next day, someone comes up to my mom and is like, hey, you should drive, you should drive for Uber. And my mom's like, well, I can't because I have this job, but my son could. And then bing, bang, boom, Uber. And now supplementary income, plus I still get to do my spiritual business. And it all worked out. It all worked out. I didn't have to do a thing. I literally just had a similar experience with having to feel and go through. Yeah, it's not always fun because, we have such an attachment, such an agenda to how our life needs to be, instead of just letting spirit guide it. Because really, in truth, and I'm going to tell you all this because it was a beautiful post that I saw from a friend of mine, Nicole Mann Altman. If you guys are interested in her, you can just look her up, Nicole Mann Altman. She's amazing. We do spiritual journeys together at her house, which are fabulous. We do them monthly. But anyway, that is besides the point. And so, we have this, basically, anything we go through in life, we are working so much with the divine. No matter what happens, we will always be guided back on track. Because we're always on track. There's never really a mistake. We're never really doing anything terrible. We're dreaming that we are, but in truth, we are just asleep and dreaming. And that's why, once again, guidance is so important, because we have to constantly ask, because we constantly have attachments to things. And that's why you hear, like I said, whenever I pray for people, whenever I do a prayer, it's always very open-ended. It's not, okay, dear God, let's say, dear God, I have the inspiration to take up painting. And I'm not quite sure how to do that. Please show me how. My goal is peace. Once again, that way I'm not making the goal painting. I'm not making the goal my goal is peace. If this is your will, please make it easy, effortless, and carefree. Done. Once again, thy will be done. Thy will, not your will. And you can really only have your will when you and the divine are one. And the only way that you and the divine will can be one is if you are in that loving space, not the head space of, well, I know better, I know best, I know what's going to make me happy, I know how it's going to make me happy, so let's go, God. B9, where's my B9? It's not coming out the machine. And that's because God is, saying to you, oh, by the way, B9 actually has peanuts in it, and I know you're allergic to peanuts, so you don't need that. But once again, if you want it, here you go. Here's your choice. This is what you have chosen. So that's just, that's how it works. So I want to open it up to questions, concerns, what do we feel like we need more clarity on? In any way, shape, or form, based on the topic that we have talked about. Not based on anything else, based on the topic we have talked about agenda and asking with agenda and how to release asking with agenda. Do we have any questions, any concerns, anything coming up for you in this way? And if there are, please put them in the comments. This is your time to be able to do this. To me, there's no stupid questions. Every question is a valid question, and I will do my very best to answer it to the best of my ability. So please ask your question. Get it out there, because someone else may have the exact same question, but they may be a little too timid to ask. So ask. Ask the question. And I am here to do my best to answer it. So what do we feel like we need clarity on, if anything, based on this asking without agenda? And I always like to open it up just because you never know. That's why I always like to open it up to questions, because there may be something that arose in your mind. Great, wonderful. Let it rise up and then express it. And so this is kind of the awkward part, where I just kind of sit here and stare at the screen, waiting for your questions to roll in, if there are any. And if there aren't any, then just give me some heart emojis, some thumbs up, letting me know that you have understood what we have talked about, that you feel clear, you feel like, yes, I got this, I understand it, I can implement it, I can do that prayer of where would you have me go, what would you have me say, and to whom. And I want to say hello to everyone who is now joining me, hello to everyone who has joined. Sorry, I haven't been able to really talk a lot to the people in the comments, simply because I wanted to stay on track, because sometimes I have a tendency when I start looking at the comments and stuff, I start going off track. So beautiful, beautiful. Just put those heart emojis. How to release worry over income, doing what I know I'm here to do. Carrie, right there. What you know you're here to do. Once again, what do you know? You know nothing. I know nothing. We know nothing. And that's where we have to come in with asking without agenda. What would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? You know, right now my income seems to be very limited, and I have such a passion for the work that I do, but I'm not quite sure how to do it. Please show me how. What would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? Thine will be done. All right. Love this. Exactly what I needed to hear. I launched my spiritual business. I was scared. And really, I might fail because I have no idea what, dear, you're so right. I'm asking Source what to do. Wonderful. Fabulous. Let's see. I found it hard not to be in fear about a situation, but Spirit has taught me a lesson through my mistake. Beautiful, beautiful. And it's not that Spirit has taught you so much a lesson. It is more that you have remembered what you need to in that moment. Remember, Spirit doesn't test. Spirit doesn't punish. Spirit is always there to be of service. I feel like all my life I've been gifted to communicate with others, other realms, but when I get shown it, I don't know if I'm ready. I asked to no longer be able to do that, but I feel like I'm ready and should ask again. Wonderful. If that's what you feel. Once again, I have this guidance, or I have this inspiration that I would like to begin communicating with the other realms again. And I don't know how to do that. I don't know if this is the right time to do that. My goal is peace. Please show me how. What would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say? And to whom? Thine will be done. There we go. I think I'm going to stop my bead shop. It's hard for me because I've always wanted to do it, but I haven't been able to work on my bead things. It's only costing me money at the moment. Thank you for this talk today. You are welcome. It is my pleasure to be of service. Just once again, ask. Ask for guidance without that agenda. It's not about, dear God, I'm losing money on this. Show me how to make money. It's, dear God, right now, I have always wanted to do this bead business. It has always been a longing in my heart. Please show me how to, if this is your will, please show me how. My goal is peace. What would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say? And to whom? If this is your will, please make the process easy, effortless, and joyful. Thy will be done. Amen. I know everything is in God's timing, but when it's time to accept that maybe what I'm asking for isn't meant to be. Yes, there is that time when it has to come up. And you have to be like, okay, if I'm not receiving an answer, if I'm not receiving that sign, once again, it's not that God doesn't want you to have happiness and joy. He just may say it's not for you. And that's okay. And we have to be willing to release those bonds, be willing to release what we think we want and what we think we know at any given point in time. All right, so how do you quit the saboteur talk that stops you in your tracks or calls you to failure to act on intuitive movement? It's about developing trust. And one way that you can begin to develop trust to let that inner saboteur go is to begin to go on what I like to call intuitive walks. And this is where you simply walk somewhere in your neighborhood, maybe at a park, and at each junction, at each intersection where you have a choice to go left or to go right, you ask, where would you have me go? Once again, put your hands over your heart simply as a symbol to assist you and say, okay, this is my symbol that I'm going into my heart space, that I'm tuning into spirit, that I'm tuning into guidance, that I'm letting go of the analyzing. And we take those big, deep breaths and we just say, okay, which way would you have me go? And you have to begin to develop that trust. So that way, that big voice in your head becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And so that way, that little voice becomes louder and louder and louder. But you must develop that trust. And that's why I always say to anyone who is beginning to tune in, go on an intuitive walk. I actually have that in my book, The Intuitive's Tool Belt. This talk is so synchronistic for me right now. I have set my intention to move homes, and all is falling into place. I just surrendered and asked Spirit to guide me. Beautiful. Yes, that's all it takes. Just surrender. Surrender, surrender, surrender. Shirley, I am so grateful that I am able to make it understandable. That's really, my goal is peace. And that's it. I don't make my goal to make it anything but peaceful, a peaceful exchange, a peaceful way that I can begin to express all that I have learned through my journey of A Course in Miracles. Okay, so when do you know that it's flopped? Like the shadow is not quiet. I don't always believe it, LOL. Well, once again, it's all about trust. It is all about trust. And if it's not going to just be dead, because once again, if we'll go a little bit into the ego here, the ego is something that you created. Okay? And I know a lot of people may disagree with that, and that's okay. I'm not here to make anyone believe the way that I do. But God didn't create the ego, we did. So essentially, we love it. We covet it like a child. And as much as we want to get rid of it, we also still want to keep it because it's ours and we made it. And all we're doing is we're beginning to allow that voice to not hold as much sway or as much attention as it did. And so we begin to focus more on the small, still voice that God created for us to assist us. The ego will never essentially die in that way. What it will do is it will become a whisper. And then eventually, yes, it will disappear. But as long as you are here, as long as we are all still here, there is still that ego. It still creeps up on me. Honey, I am not special by any stretch of the imagination. My ego comes up and I face it head on instead of hiding from it like I used to. I used to hide from it, be like, la, 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 I'm not going to listen. But now I look at it and I forgive whatever's coming up about it. Let's see. Fear and doubt, a major barrier, and comparing ourselves to others. And when we let go, that's it. Just letting go into trust. I love when I am drawn to your lives, Ron. Your love is massive. I am a spiritual director, and although I know every time I hear another healer's affirm, it's tough to work on self. I exhale, LOL, abundantly grateful for your transparency, love, and share. Thank you so much. Well, I believe in transparency. What do I have to hide? Because if I hide, what am I doing? Then I'm saying that a part of me is ugly. A part of me no one can see. I need to hide it. Why? I am on this earth like everybody else. I am not special. I am not unique. I am simply here. And I may just be half a step ahead of you in one area, and you may be half a step ahead of me in another. The Course in Miracles says to be a true teacher simply means that you clarify your own belief. And that's all I'm doing. I'm just clarifying my own beliefs by teaching them to all of you. And like I said in, the first broadcast, day one, yesterday, I'm not looking for followers. I'm looking to put myself out of business. That's why I'm doing this free training, so you guys can begin to learn how to do this. And I know it's only 5 days, but, you've already gotten 2 days of wonderful information. taught as children to be transparent. Well, once again, we don't live in the past. We don't need to say, oh man, I wish. No, don't wish it. Make it a reality. In your now moment, be transparent now. Don't say I wish in the past. Be transparent now. Don't try to go off into the moment. Don't try to go off into the past. Stay here. Okay, so when you hear the shadow, you just embrace it and forgive it and trust that I've honed my intuitive and it's not my shadow. Well, if you are concerned, if it's your shadow, you can go back to day 1 and you can actually hear about what I say or how I have put that, how the ego speaks to us and how spirit speaks to us. You can go back to day 1, or you can actually just go to the very beginning of the video because I actually do a quick little review of day 1. But you can find day 1 here on my page, and you just have to scroll down. I think it's just like 1 or 2 down, and you can find out all that information. Yes. Oh, well, thank you so much. But my magnificence is only a reflection of all of yours. Once again, and that's not false humility. I'm not trying to say, oh, this shirt, this whole thing. Oh, no. I'm just speaking a statement of fact. That's it. A statement of fact is what you see is magnificent in me. I see magnificent. It's just that magnificence reflected. That's it. Okay. And well, that's a little bit more on a different topic, but I do want to touch on that for you. How to stay in the present moment. If you start to find yourself drifting to the past or drifting into the future, a great exercise that you can do is to simply take a deep breath and then name 5 things that you see in front of you. And just be like, piece of paper, nasal spray, angel statue, dental card, and whatever else may be in front of you. And then from there, name at least 3 things you're grateful for in that moment, and actually grateful for, not just lip service, unless you have to do the lip service just to get into that gratitude, and that's okay. And practicing your living in the moment teaching. It's amazing. Oh, wonderful. Yay. I'm so glad. Isn't it wonderful to live in the moment? But that's it. So that's something that you guys can do to keep yourself in the moment and keep yourself from going to the past or going to the future and staying in your now, because you are naming that which is in front of you in that particular moment. And then you are naming what you are grateful for, which is helping you to become even more present in that moment. So thank you so much for joining me for this presentation. I will be back tomorrow, the exact same time. And I got to look at my notes and see what we're going to talk about tomorrow. And tomorrow is, here we go. This is a good one. Tomorrow is, why am I not hearing? And we're going to be talking about the fear of hearing, the fear of specifics, and the fear of failing or falling. So that's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. So I'll see you all here again at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much.